I just give you a little update. All of you know that a week ago, I guess it was Sunday, I got prayer again because I was having more tests done, which I went last Friday, a week ago, I guess, and I had to go back Monday to the doctor. And he walked in the room and he says, "I've been treating you, haven't I?" And I said, "No, you haven't." He says, "I haven't?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Well, you're improved?" And I said, "I have." And he said, "Yes." He said, "Matter of fact, your nodes are shrinking." And I didn't. He said, "Now, don't get me wrong, you still got the disease." I said, "Yeah, I know that." So I told Pam, when I'm completely healed, I'm going to tell him what happened. And so anyway, he said, "Well, whatever you're doing, just keep on doing it." He said, so he's really a nice doctor at Vanderbilt and he seems to be really concerned with his patients and very sweet. He called me, I guess, the next day and told me my blood work all turned out good. So I'm so thankful, and surely Jesus is my best friend. And I so appreciate him and all of his goodness, and to my family and to Harold and I. He's kept us all through these years, and I'm so grateful to him.
It's been Easter, and I've been thinking about salvation and how Jesus died on the cross, and it seems to be that salvation is becoming more and more real to me every day. Just different things that would, different circumstances that I'm coming across, and just makes the Lord so real. And I was thinking about my brother the last couple weeks. I think he was 6 or 7, and he got saved in the bathtub all by himself. And I guess if he was 6, I was 5, or if he was 7, I was 6. And I can remember him coming out of the bathtub and coming into the kitchen where me and my mom were, and he was dripping wet, and he had the towel around him. And we weren't going to church and anywhere. My dad, I think, took us to about a Real Sweet Baptist church every other weekend when we would visit him. And he said, "Mom, I asked Jesus into my heart, and he came." And I remember him just crying, and just that real experience that he had in the bathtub by himself. Nobody coached him, and nobody had, prompted that emotional experience that he had, and just how really real that was. And I was, at my work, I'm a nurse, and I'm always talking to people, and I found actually someone at work didn't tell me about this, but someone else did, about this young man. He was trying to find the Lord, but he wasn't really sure, and he went to the hospital, and he was talking to a loved one that was critically ill, and she was talking to him about God, and it really touched him. And so he was like, "Oh, I've got to get out of this room," because he felt convicted, and it was a big hospital, and there's tons of elevators, and he got on an elevator, and I guess he was kind of broken, and there was a man and a woman on the elevator, and the woman stepped off, and the man said, "Son, would you like to talk to me? I'm a minister." And he got saved on the elevator. So, it's just so neat to see how God works in so many places, and it doesn't always have to be in the church building. It would be great if it was, and a lot of times that's the avenue he chooses to use. But, I'm just overwhelmed with the Lord right now, and I'm so thankful that he saved me and that he loves me, and that I can feel that every day. No matter if I work every Wednesday night and I'm not able to be here, I can still be ministered to, and that we all can be ministered to through other people. And I just appreciate the Lord. And, my life has changed a lot where, when I was younger, didn't have very many responsibilities, and it was easier for me to make it to every function. And now I can't, whether I feel like I can or I am physically at a job, but I'm so glad that the Lord hasn't changed, and I know that he never will. And I love him so much, and I really appreciate everybody here, and thanks for letting me talk.
But as different ones were testifying, I thought, well, he's my friend too. He is my friend too. He forgave me of my sins. And at the age of 15, I hadn't experienced everything. I hadn't done everything that somebody that is a fully an adult person may have experienced. But the thing is that the potential of doing everything that anybody has ever done was in me. I had that potential, and it's not because I'm such a bad person, but because what we inherit from Adam and Eve, what they pass along to us. But I was thinking also, he's such a great friend. That's why we keep on coming here every time we're able to come, to give him honor, to give him the praises that he deserves. And because he's done so much for us, and we have so much in common, we feel so good in being together with each other. We do. I'm not saying that nothing ever happens here that creates a little bit of a friction. Of course, I don't. Well, as long as I live in this flesh, I'm sure I'm going to create some friction. But what I'm saying is that, any place else, there are good people that we have the opportunity to meet, to work with, or to become friends. But if they don't know the Lord, they live in a different world. And we live in a different world than they live. But here, hopefully, all of us live in the same world. And that is that the Lord is our Savior. The Lord is our friend. And John 15:12. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. As I have loved you. I don't know that I'm yet there. I would like to get there. That I would love you as the Lord loved me. And I expressed myself some time ago precisely concerning that. You are my family. You are my family. The Lord brought me here and planted me here in this assembly 38 years ago, 39 years ago. And I literally felt from the Lord, not an audible voice, but felt like he said, this is your home. This is your home. So I'm glad that he has kept me here. Not that I'm always have been smart enough or wise enough to have done everything to stay in this place. But being the good Lord that he is, he watches over us. And he has protected me. And he has guided me. He has led me and sheltered me so that I will stay in this place. I want to love everyone here in such a way that I want to be excited about seeing you, about greeting you, almost like the first time. The first time. That is an excitement that should be in us in greeting every child of God. Especially, there are some children of God that we don't know, and if we met them, we probably won't be able to detect or know them unless the Lord reveals that to us. But since I know you, I want to be able to treat you that way. Treat you like the Lord has treated me. And that is his commandment anyhow. That is nothing really special, but it's his commandment. But anyhow, greater love, continuing with verse 13, greater love hath no man than this, that a man laid down his life for his friends. And that is exactly what he did. That's why we can claim tonight that he is our friend, that he is the best friend every one of us has, because he laid down his life for us. And then he said, you are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth, but I have called you friends. For all things that I have heard of my Father, I have made known unto you. He didn't keep anything to himself, like saying, well, they don't deserve to know this of my Father. They're not good enough. That was not the case with him. Everything that he heard of the Father, of the love the Father has for us, everything that he heard, he passed it along to us.
I was talking just before he came to church. I was saying to her that this seems like at this point in my life, I've maybe have come to enough understanding of life that I feel like I'm just ready to begin. The older I get, the more I realize, the less I know. The unknown grows with the known. The more your mind is stretched and you understand things, that's in almost every field, even technically. The more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know. The more you need to know, the more you need to study, and the harder you need to work to master understanding. It says, in him are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. So knowledge is a treasure. Understanding how to live life is such a treasure. It's to be cherished, cultivated, nourished in our life. The understanding of life and wisdom, of course, is a great treasure. To know what to do with the knowledge. It's one thing to get knowledge. A lot of people have knowledge, but they don't know what to do with it. And don't know how to make use of it to your life. And I feel like at times that I'd like to go back to college. I'm really considering it, really. I just know there's such a yearning in my heart to understand. And there's so much out there that God has given us to help mankind. God is reaching to us. And it said that in the end time, knowledge shall increase. Well, I think that's in every way. We understand that as far as the world knowledge is concerned. Science is just being overwhelmed with data that's pouring in from every direction. They don't know what to do with it and how to retain it, how to make use of it. But I think that us having been in this setting where that God's people are trying to understand the things of God, and men have searched and reached out to God for understanding, that I think in the spirit we're not that far behind the world. I think there's a lot of understanding that God has given his people. And I think a lot of times we may interpret maybe turmoil or trouble as bothersome or just trouble. But it may be God trying to speak to us. And God trying to open our minds, open our hearts to understand what He's doing. My. Who can know the mind of God? Past finding out, you can't see into the depths of God. As I look back in my life and all the experiences I've had, and it's amazing to me the route, and I know this is everyone's testimony. It's not just unique to me or any one of us. If we're really trying to follow the Lord, God will bring people into our lives to help us understand His ways. He'll bring people by. I was mentioning to somebody this week, going back in my several decades in my life, that just seems by chance that God has brought people into my life. And later on, I understood what understanding or what enlightenment these people have brought to me, just in understanding the ways of God. I didn't even realize it when they were there. People I would hire, or people that would be in my life, or brought just from different directions. And I was just this week, I was recounting that, how that I was naming different people. And it was like God was educating me. It was just amazing, the people that we cross paths with. And it's not by chance. God deliberately is schooling us into His ways, that we might understand the ways of God. How does God work? How does He develop the humanity, and how does He change us into His nature? He's creating a new creation. God, I know it says that in 6 days God made the earth, and He rested on the seventh day, but He's still creating. It isn't over yet. And I've tried to look into those scriptures and get maybe some understanding of how that perhaps the greatest or the climax or the final, the purpose for all of creation is focused on creating a human or a being that actually could live with God. All of this work that He's doing, all of the efforts that God is putting forth, is to finally have a being that could sit down and have a conversation with Him, literally. Well, you could say physically. We won't be physical at that point. And to think we're part of this project that God is working on and has been working on for thousands of years, and maybe longer. That God is, no wonder He loved, as I've thought of this the last few years and tried to understand this, there's just been a growth in my mind and my heart of understanding of how God loves this world. For God so loved the world. Look, He's focused on this for thousands, maybe millions of years. We don't really know. On one thing, This has been God's project. I thought it said he's 6 days. It's like God had a week project. We take a week off and go on vacation. God took a week and created the universe. A little side project he had. But this endeavor he's in, he created the heaven and the earth, and he's created other beings. And I want to say this careful and right. It looks like he's created other beings, but he didn't get what he wanted, evidently. So he's created us. And we then, through choice, have been given the privilege of being co-creators with him in this creating process of new creation. Our free will, our choice, then becomes that lets us participate in the awesomeness of creating a new creation. And I've looked at those scriptures where it talks about the one sitting around him on his throne, judging. I'm sure I'm looking at it, not in. I seem like I see something in that perhaps that's not just something way off here in the future, but in our final climax of the finishing of this task in our lives and the finishing of the new creation, we sit alongside God and participate in this creation by our free will. Our choice becomes our will then is joined with his to finish this task of judging this world and completing our own salvation. We become co-creators of our own new creation that's being developed and growing within us, and where that we can then be like him. So when we see him, we shall be like him. We're trying to grow into that dimension with God. And I got off track a little bit. I've felt such a need to see more clear, have more understanding. And at my age, I feel like I need to hurry. I don't feel like I've got a lot of time left at the best. And I know there's a thrill. There's such a thrill in having your mind. And I appreciated what this sister was saying, how that nature seemed to be more beautiful. The grass was greener. The flowers were more beautiful. And I never will forget, when you have those experiences of enlightenment from God, the world depicted as a light bulb going off on your head. Well, not a bad picture. And they too, if you've never met the Lord, there's points in your life when a understanding will thrill your heart, just in the world. But been over 50 years ago that happened to me. And went to church one day. We normally went maybe once a month, and we just decided to go to church that day, And my wife took care of two little children. There was a captain we were in the Army stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas, and I was in the military. And my wife was babysitting, or he furnished us a home. This captain's wife passed away in Germany, and he had two little babies, and one was, I think, 3, and the other a year and a half or something. And so we moved in with him. He furnished the home. It was a great big Victorian home. I don't know how many rooms, a lot of rooms in it. And it was something really the Lord supplied for us. We lived there with him, and almost all the time we were in the military, and had a free home, and he furnished most of the food. I can't remember what we were paid, $70 a month or something was our take-home pay from the Army. Anyway, it was a blessing. And my wife took care of these two little babies 24/7. They were just like our children. I never will forget when we left there. And she'd had these babies for probably a year and a half. They were just like her babies. And the husband was not a very good father and was hardly ever around, and they were just our children. A little boy and a little girl. The girl was older than the boy. And as we was driving out of that town, my wife was in terrible pain. She had to leave her babies. She kept asking me, "Can we sue? What can we do?" I said, "No, we're not their parents." And over the years, I've thought then when we had, the children were named Sammy and Jeannie. When we had our children, Joan got her little Sammy and Jeannie back. The girl was older than the boy. They were just exactly like that. So my wife got her little babies back, and they were hers. Anyway, we took these children to church, and we went into this little Nazarene church, and we didn't know it, but they was having a revival that day. And we sat in the back of the church with the kids, and I don't remember what that man preached on. He was a evangelist they had in for a week. And but the Lord began to deal with me and my wife both. And I never will forget, I shook from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. I couldn't stop shaking. And I'd made other starts for the Lord over the years. I say over the years, I think I was only 21. My wife was 20. But I knew what it was to serve the Lord. And I stood there and I talked to the Lord before I ever stepped out. And I told the Lord, I said, if I make a move today, this is forever. I want this to be forever. I don't ever want to turn back. This decision I make today, I want it to stick. And I reached over and got my wife by the hand, and we went down that aisle. And somewhere between that back of that church and that altar, my life was changed. Yes, praise God. And that stirred my mind when she said, on the way home that day from church, it looked like the Lord washed the world. I didn't know the world was so pretty, just beautiful flowers. I went home and there was flowers all around my house. I don't know. I guess they was there when I went to church, but I didn't see them. And the grass was greener. It was just what an experience to meet God. Have a personal encounter with the God of the universe. How could you ever forget that? Anyway, what a life it's been. What a wonderful life it has been. To be able to work the way I have had a personal relationship with God. I'm not much to get in my closet and spend 3 or 4 hours in prayer. I've never been. I guess I'm kind of like Martha in the Bible. You're cumbered about many things. I'm busy. But while I'm busy, I'm talking to the Lord. He walks with me. He talks with me. And many days, I come to the end of the day having talked to him all day long. And what an honor. What a thrill. Yeah. I always thought when I'd get old, that life would be boring. I'm ready to start all over again. This is an exciting way. This has been a wonderful life to live. Have it with your friend to be God. And I've been doing some research and trying to figure out a way to talk about it, but I haven't figured it out yet. But I'm trying to learn how to better communicate with the Lord. How do you talk to God? We say we feel him. We do. I'd like to refine that. I'd like to grow in that. I'd like to develop in that. I know what it is to live. And I hope you don't misunderstand this. But I know you know what I'm talking about. There's nothing more thrilling in life than to live in the Spirit. And that's not magic. That's not something far out. That's just being in mental connection with God. That's what that means. You're hooked up. You're in contact. You're communicating. That's living in his Spirit. To where that your thrill in life is living in that communion with God. What a thrill it is to live in contact with God. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with life. Been moving through a lot of things the last few years, and it's just a product of old age. Everybody goes through it. You'll go through it. If you're 10 years old, someday you may know what I'm talking about. It's just a phase of life that you go through, and it has its temptation, just like every other phase in life that's peculiar to that age and development in our growth with God. But in spite of all of that, it's been a wonderful walk with my Lord. And I crave more of it. I'm satisfied, but I'm hungry. And I hunger for his fellowship and his richness in our lives. And I love you all. I love this place. I owe my life to this place and to God.